Racing at NASCAR's highest level requires every last bit of focus, heart, stamina, and determination. And I know right now I can't give what is required to compete at that level week in and week out. So I'm officially announcing my retirement from NASCAR Cup Series competition.
Kurt Busch. A lot of things come to mind when you hear the name Kurt Busch. A lot of good, a lot of bad, and a lot in the middle. And I think the thing about Kurt Busch is that he's been one of the best stories to watch in the last 20 plus years of NASCAR. He's a driver who many have loved to hate, others have loved to see get redemption, and has won and fought through it all. And today I want to talk a bit about Kurt Busch and really show why, even though all these things come to mind, I still think he's an underrated legend. And he needs to be remembered for the importance that he had in NASCAR's history and the mark that he made on the sport for years to come and will continue to make. Kurt Busch was a winner. No matter where he went, he won. He won at Roush. He won at Penske. He won at Stewart-Haas, Ganassi, and 2311. He had 34 wins in his career, putting him well up the NASCAR wins list. And on top of all of that, he was a champion in 2004. Kurt Busch is somebody who helped define a generation of NASCAR fans, one of the most elite drivers to ever grace our sport. And you know what? The thing about Kurt Busch is that still, through all of that, he was overlooked. Many times it was because of what he represented to fans. Early on in his career, he looked like the antithesis of what NASCAR fans wanted in a driver. They wanted a grizzled veteran, somebody who got their hands dirty, got in and worked on the car, and looked like they were from the same place as all of those watching from home. But he wasn't that, or at least he didn't look like that to many people. He looked like a driver who was spoiled, somebody who had never worked a day in his life, and many people thought that he was just running amok for no reason whatsoever other than he could get away with it. We all know that that's not true to this day, but it's a very similar precedent that's been set for many young drivers even to this day. But in 2004, he won. He won the first chase for the Cup. He won in a new era. And because of that, people looked past it. They looked past in a lot of ways. The fact that his tire fell off and he still won the championship. They looked past the fact that he beat legends like Johnson, Gordon, Martin, and Dale Jr. that day. Why? Many looked at him as an illegitimate champion, a mark that was placed on many in the chase era. But he was the first. He was the first in the infancy of this, as popular drivers like Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt Jr. had better seasons statistically that year. And his temper and lack of popularity didn't help as well. He is what fans wanted to hate. And because of that, he was one of the most hated drivers of his time. And he had a lot of low points in his career. He had a lot of different spats through the years. Known for his temper, there probably wasn't a driver whose feathers he didn't ruffle in the process.
Whoa, he hit him. Busch got under him and muscled Jimmy Spencer. You don't see that often.
A new Winston Cup rivalry was born, and revenge was all but promised.
He just booted him out of the way. We're here and it's a red car. Spencer? Yeah.
Oh, touch. Hit.
Sources tell me Jimmy got out of the car, approached Kurt Busch, and actually punched Kurt Busch.
This is only the second caution of the day for contact or an on-track incident, but both have involved the Busch brothers. Kyle, the first one, and Kurt crashes in this one. Tony Stewart comes to pit road, and then Kurt Busch comes in as they're looking at the damage to Stewart's car. Kurt comes up to offer his opinion.
And guess what they got in the two car? Parked. But Kurt Busch got such a run through the middle of 3 and 4. Kyle to the inside. There he goes.
Checkers or wreckers.
And it wasn't just drivers either. He had his rivalries with the press as well. and ultimately it would cost him on many occasions. He clashed with teams, and over and over and over again, he kept fighting. It was the low point of his career, especially going into the 2010s. But Kurt Busch did what he always did and continued to persevere. He was the one who put Furniture Row completely on the competitive map. Yes, Regan Smith won in the 78 car in 2011 at Darlington, but let's not mistake the fact that Regan Smith and that 78 team was nothing more than a sub-25th place team at the time, even if it was really impressive that he was doing it back then. Before Kurt Busch jumped in that car, the best year, the best season Furniture Row ever had was 2011, where Regan Smith finished 26th in the point standings. While Kurt did not win in this team, he was not only competitive, but he easily qualified for the 2013 chase. Off of points, no wild cards, no being added as a 13th man, he was in legitimately. And he finished 10th in the final standings, 16 spots greater than the 78 had finished in 2011. He also, after that, was a part of an expanding Stewart-Haas Racing in the number 41 machine. To this day, he's put up the best numbers that team and car has ever gotten. And during that time as well, he qualified for the playoffs every season he drove it, from 2014 to 2018, from Chevrolet to Ford. Didn't matter the manufacturer, Kurt kept going. And in the process, he also cemented his legacy in Daytona 500 history.
42's out of gas. 42's out of gas.
Who else is going to run out?
21 is, I'm not so sure. Well, I think he's okay. He's still going.
Now, if the 47 can get up behind the 21, give him a push, he might get there, but I don't know. I think this might be Kurt Busch's day.
Looks like he's going to come home a winner.
Kurt Busch has been the bridesmaid in the Daytona 500. Here they come off turn 4 for the final time. From Las Vegas, the 2004 champion of the series, Kurt Busch, for Gene Haas and Tony Stewart, wins the Daytona 500.
He also brought the Ganassi number 1 team back to prominence. With an amazing Kentucky duel as well with his brother Kyle, he will now forever be remembered in that car for winning against, again, his brother, but one of the greatest drivers of this past generation. And he got the first points win in this car in 6 years, since McMurray got it in 2013. And he was the one who got the first full race win for 2311. And not only that, he beat probably the best driver in NASCAR at the time, defending champion Kyle Larson. He was competitive right to the end. And the thing about Kurt Busch is there's other things that I think fans remember him for outside the car and inside as well. And now, from what we've learned from his press conference, there's so much more that we knew he went through. For me, I knew Kurt Busch as the fellow Cubs fan. The few times I got to talk to him, it was nice because he always gave me the time to do it, and he always talked with me about the Cubs. I wasn't a friend by any means, but it was always nice knowing I could walk up to a legend of the sport and have a conversation about something other than NASCAR. He was a great competitor too, and it was clear he was improving his craft every single season up to the very end. He ended, surprisingly, with grace. Instead of a roar, it was more of a whimper. A qualifying crash, of all things, would take him out of the car. And in many ways, it is bitter to look at, but there's also another way to look at it too. It was his final test in his career, how he would handle it. If this was Kurt Busch 10 years earlier, this probably wouldn't be an upbeat or at least triumphant story at the end. But he has handled it in grace. He talked about how he raced in silent pain, how he didn't want to let anybody know about his arthritis or the fact that he could barely walk. But he kept being competitive. When you look at it all, Kurt Busch is a legend of NASCAR. He's a connection from the past, racing with legends both in the previous generation and a few in the one before that. And he's a connection to the drivers today as well. Thank you, Kurt, for all the years you put in NASCAR, for all the moments you gave us fans, and thank you, Kurt, for being you.